Freeman, let me take you on a journey.
Ooh.
You're cold. So cold you can feel it down in your bones. The white of the falling snow clouds your vision, and the lack of oxygen makes it hard to breathe. You look around and see your companions trudging through the same seemingly futile process through the deep snow as you crest a mountain ridge to, finally, a plateau. The wind whips your exposed cheeks as you take a brief reprieve from the exhausting travel. You all quickly munch down some dried fruits and take a few gulps of your painful, ice-cold water from the skins as you hear the whispering of your long-dead fiancée on the wind. "Save me," her voice gently calls to you. Immediately, you perk up and notice that all of those around you have as well. You stop eating and grip the handle of your weapon as you see a shimmer approaching you from the direction you came. You realize you know that howl, but you're having an impossible time pinning down where the movement is coming from. A shimmer here, a crunch of snow there, when all of a sudden, a deafening howl is heard and the claw reaches out to you from the blizzard. Roll for initiative.
Oh, I didn't bring my dice.
Greetings, creatures one and all. Welcome to Encounter This, a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons podcast where we take a dive into the monsters you know and love and their real-world counterparts. Before we get into this episode, I'd just like to take a minute to thank this week's sponsor, Libris Arcana. They offer a super affordable dice subscription service as well as standalone polyhedral sets. I've been a subscriber since their inception, and I can say I really look forward to my set in the mail every month. Check them out at librisarcana.com. That's librisarcana.com.
Good day, monstrosities. This is Freeman the Iceman Eyston, your co-host on Encounter This. My fellow partner in crime, James the Abominable Temper Tantrum Kid, will be taking us through the Yeti section from the Monster Manual, page 305, 306, from Wizards of the Coast 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Take it away, James. What do you got for us?
So today we're going to be talking about two creatures, the Yeti and the Abominable Yeti. They don't actually have a whole lot of D&D lore other than the fact it's said you can hear the whispers of your loved ones in the howl. And their howl is a precursor to a blizzard or an avalanche or some other style of impending doom. But they do have just a touch of lore, and it's they hunt in small packs. They have a very intense sense of smell, and they're opportunity cannibals, which is pretty cool.
Oh.
So if one goes down, they've got no problem just tearing that bitch apart and eating it. They're driven by hunger, but avoid humans when they can. And there are even stories of them being lured into an enemy's camp with dead animals so they can be used as weapons. Like, you put a sheep in your enemy's camp, and then you just wait for this Yeti to attack.
Sick.
And then use that as a weapon, which I thought was really, really neat.
It's pretty vicious.
But the Abominable Yeti specifically has everything the Yeti has and a little bit more. It's actually a larger creature, so whereas the regular Yeti is large, the Abominable is huge, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
And it's said that it's 3 times as large as a man, so it's actually has a specific size in the Monster Manual.
Okay.
The Abominable specifically normally live and hunt alone, whereas the regular ones tend to live in small hunting parties. And they will pair and mate, but only long enough to raise the young. Other than that, they're super, super savage and wicked territorial. So again, there's not nearly as much as there was in our pilot episode, The Harpy, to really build upon, but I think there's enough there, and if you really dig into the real world stuff, this is where we're going to start to get a little bit long, where the body of the show is really going to come from.
Sure, yeah.
The Yeti in our world is a creature from the Himalayan folklore. I've been actually having a hard time figuring out where the name specifically comes from. It's definitely Tibetan, but my best guess it's from Yache, which is a Tibetan compound word of the word Waile, which means rocky, and Che for bear, so...
the Rocky Bear.
The Rocky Bear, yeah.
Sweet.
Which is pretty neat.
Dwelling on the mountains. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get back to the bear later on, but it's found in a lot of pre-Buddhist beliefs from several peoples of the region in the Sherpa culture, specifically the Lapacha people, whose god of the hunt was actually like a large, furry glacier being, which I thought was really neat.
God of the hunt.
Yeah, so like their Earl King is this Yeti figure that just lives in the mountains. I thought was super, super neat.
That's nifty, yeah.
But it really starts to hit Western culture in the early 1800s. There's a couple of expeditions that start happening in Nepal. Mm-hmm. So in 1832, a guy called B.J. Hodgson spots a tall bipedal creature that's just covered in this orangey red hair.
Okay.
So in 1899, our next appearance of it really happens, which is by a guy called Lawrence Waddell, who publishes a book with ape-like footprints. He actually believes these footprints are left by a bear. So he's heard stories of the creature through the Sherpa people, but nobody's ever been able to give him concrete evidence.
Right.
So we're going to jump ahead to 1925, where near Zimu Glacier, N.A. Tambazi, a photographer from the Royal Geographic Society, observed a creature walking upright, but by his own admission, it was like 200, 300 yards away, and described as similar to B.J. Hodgson's bipedal creature covered in fur. Tambazi actually followed the bipedal footprints as far as he could.
Okay.
So jumping into the 1950s, this is where shit starts to actually get crazy. Like we get some real names here, people that we've heard of before. So in 1951, Eric Shipton took the first photos of Yeti footprints. I'm doing air quotes, listeners.
Quote unquote, yeah.
Yeah, while scaling Everest. So in 1953, when Sir Edmund Hillary did his first ascent with Tenzing Norgay, they also report seeing footprints, but they're unconfirmed. And Norgay's father is a big Yeti guy, so he fully believes in it. But Norgay is super skeptical, and he just, by the end of his life, he completely denounces the existence of the Yeti.
No kidding, yeah.
So the 1954 hair from a Yeti scalp is analyzed by Professor Frederick Wood Jones, an expert in human anatomy. And he concluded that the hair was from the back of a coarse-haired, hoofed animal. Now we think it's probably was from a sero, but we didn't know seros actually existed then.
What's a sero?
Seros are like Himalayan mountain goats, but they only have a single horn.
Oh.
They're fucking weird looking. Like, they just look like an abomination. They're fantastic.
How do you spell sero?
Serrow.
Looking that up.
Yeah, please do. They're awesome listeners. But it was definitely not hair from an ape-like creature. And they found this Yeti scalp in Pangbosh, which is in Kumjang, which is a part of Nepal. I'm having a real tough time narrowing down the geography of Nepal.
Yeah.
But Pangbosh, and I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, so feel free to correct us, is a village in the Kumjang, which I think is like a Canadian province.
Okay.
So
for those of you who aren't from Canada, that's like an American state.
Yeah. It's like a state, but with a different governmental function, essentially. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So in 1957, this dude, Tom Slick, like I want a movie about this guy. He's
Tom
just
Slick.
Yeah, he's such a fucking weirdo. So he is self-described as an adventurer and an advocate of cryptozoology.
I've heard of cryptozoology. Is he the guy who's also like was investigating Loch Ness Monster and shit like a while back? Yeah, and he just like has this tiny little like group of people that are dedicated to finding these mythical creatures.
Yeah, so he's a heir to an oil barony. So he gets and sends out all of these people on like these weird expeditions. So Loch Ness Monster was a big one. Yeti's by far the biggest, but Sasquatch and Ape Man and the salamanders of the I think it's the Andes that he's looking for.
The salamanders.
Yeah, which is another creature that we'll be covering later on.
Yeah.
So that's really neat. So not only does Tom Slick do all this weird cryptozoology shit on the side, he actually funded a nonprofit called SWRI, which is the Southwest Research Institute. They're a real heavy hitter in environmental research to this day still. And he also funded a bunch of other things. But he played a pivotal role specifically in the 1959 Pangbosh hand incident where Jimmy Stewart, yes, that Jimmy Stewart from A Wonderful Life, smuggled a quote-unquote Yeti hand from Pangbosh back to London in a suitcase.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like, just ridiculousness. I don't want to go too much into detail because that's a little bit off topic. So listeners, feel free to look that up on your own. That's that's
Stewart.
Yeah,
and the Yeti hand.
Jimmy Stewart smuggled the Yeti hand.
That's gonna be like a Hardy Boys book or something. Jesus.
If it's not, please make it.
Oh my God.
So then in 1960, this is where Edmund Hillary comes back into it. He was part of one of Tom Slick's expeditions, but he got his hands on another scalp from Kunjang, where he took it with the chieftain of that tribe back to London to be analyzed by Marca, definitely pronouncing that wrong. We're going to go with Marca Burns, who determined it was a species closely related to the Tibetan blue bear or the Asian black bear, both of which are super common in the Himalayas and ridiculously fucking cute.
What bear isn't?
Oh, right?
I saw a grizzly for the first time a few weeks back.
Oh, wow.
Up on what's the mountain there? You know, the one up
Grouse?
There. Yeah, grouse.
Really?
Yeah.
You saw grizzly on grouse?
Yeah, well, they have them in a little enclosure.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah,
Not in the wild.
It wasn't in the wild. I would have fucking pissed myself. But I could not keep my eyes off it. They're enormous, but they're just so cool and just literally adorable.
Bears are insane until you encounter one in the wild.
Oh, yeah. No, pass every time. Hardcore. Hard pass.
But honestly, it really only just gets dumber from there. As we learn more, people seem to regress. Like it's flat earther syndrome, but with the Yetis, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So listeners, I'm telling you, the honest truth right now is there's no evidence to support an ape-like species living in the Himalayas. And if they did, they would need to come down in the winter when it gets really fucking cold. Realistically, the Yeti is probably just one of the earlier mentioned bear species, the Himalayan brown bear or the Tibetan blue bear, or the Asian black bear.
Yeah, fair enough.
In 2003, Dr. Makoto Nobuka, a Japanese researcher and mountaineer, and I could not find any information about this person other than this part on the Wikipedia page, so if anybody's got more information, I would love to learn more about this person. They published a 12-year in-depth linguistic study, which I can't even find the name of.
Okay.
Postulating that the word Yeti is even a corruption of the word Métis, which is a specific Sherpan dialect for the word bear.
Huh.
So we're coming back to that bear.
So are we looking at the possibility of, someone messed up the word, and because that got messed up, it became a bit of a legend?
That's in the Western culture, for sure.
Yeah.
That's almost 100%.
Because we're not calling it bear, we're calling it something close to bear. Now we have something that's apparently close to a bear.
Exactly. Yeah. And that actually happens twice in the Yeti history, if this counts. So abominable is actually a mistranslation of a Sherpa word meaning filthy or dirty, whereas abominable in English actually means like moral revulsion or like unwrithed cruelty. Mm-hmm. So that's the second incidence of something being mistranslated from this weird Tibetan dialect.
Yeah.
And then just to bring it back to the bear, in 2017, a guy called Daniel Taylor actually printed the copies of Shipton's photos from 1951 when he was scaling Everest. And the Yeti's footprints, you can clearly see the scratches of bear claw marks.
Okay.
So therefore, we're breaking the news to you here first, listeners. The Yeti is definitively a bear.
And we are definitely the first to tell the public that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're really interesting to me. I love cryptozoology, and I love the idea of these hidden creatures in our world that we just can't see or seem to find. Mm-hmm. But more than that, I love the idea that this is just somebody's fucked up idea of a bear that's just been portrayed via white people very, very poorly for the last 70 years.
Yeah. You mentioned, too, that they're eventually, it gets to talking about having an ape-like features. So we're kind of anthropomorphizing... I say that right? Anthropomorphizing this bear into a more human form over time it seems that way anyway, with the legend continuing.
Yeah, and we're really just building off 1832 B.H. Hodgson's. Like, somebody wanted there to be an ape that lives up there, or a Neanderthal. And
I think we all know that bears can walk on two legs. They may not do it very often, but they are very capable of standing up.
They definitely do it. And the Tibetan blue bear specifically does it a lot.
Oh, really?
So they stand on their hind legs to get berries that grow up high, so the berries aren't covered in the snowdrift when the avalanche comes down.
Right.
Today's episode is brought to you by Strangefellows Milk Stout. Please send us some Milk Stout, Strangefellows. It's not actually brought to you by them.
Yeah. We just love it.
Yeah, just please. Just cases.
Just more.
So there are some huge differences between the Yeti in D&D and in real culture. Mm-hmm. Most specifically is that in D&D, it's a white creature. It's huge. It's got these weird like curling antler horns, which I thought was pretty cool because there are a couple of other Tibetan goat creatures that also have horns similar to that. Yeah. So in our world, the Yeti is most often described as a reddy brown, similar to the Sasquatch or to the ape man. I love how in Sherpa culture they're used as a warning or a boogeyman to tell children how to behave, or the Yeti will get them. Whereas in D&D culture, they're just these ravage. Ravage is not an adjective.
Savage? You meant savage.
They're just these savage, hairy, abominable creatures, and they really play up to that abominable name, which is just an absolute mistranslation, which I thought was super, super interesting.
Yeah. We're looking at a mistranslation, a possible corruption of a word, and two different definitions of the same word.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these myths and history stuff, they always get convoluted and mixed up because someone mispronounced something. And I love the, you haven't found much on the etymology of it, but it really still came down to the etymology of it being a cause for this legend to a degree, right?
Yeah, and we can narrow it down specifically to an English photographer whose name I don't have in front of me, who made the mistranslation of filthy to abominable.
Crazy.
So,
unreal. So we have the general appearance from the book, the brief and small amount of lore that comes from the monster manual. We have a much more extensive real-world history surrounding the myth of a Yeti and or ape man, Sasquatch. They all seem to be in that same wheelhouse, right? But let's move on to mechanics in the game and how they are reflected through that lore and whatnot. What do we got?
yeah, so we have two different creatures reflected in the D&D mythos. One of them is the regular Yeti, and the other is the abominable Yeti. I can never tell if I'm saying that word properly.
Abominable. Yeah,
abominable?
You got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Abominable.
Amenable.
Amenable Yeti.
The amenable Yeti. One is a CR3, and the other jumps right up to a CR9, which is
Jesus.
insane. Like
3 to 9.
There's not a huge difference between the two creatures. They're both strength focused and they're both con focused. The regular Yeti has a strength of +4, whereas the abominable Yeti has a +7 to its strength. Right then
7.
and there. Yeah. They're
breaking the ability score rules right out of the gate.
crazy, eh?
Yeah.
The weird part is the abominable Yeti has a 9 to charisma, but the regular Yeti has an 8, which I thought was a weird discrepancy. I don't understand why it has more charisma.
Yeah, maybe it's more likely to mate.
I guess so. That would make sense,
Yeah.
but the regular Yetis live in like packs and hunting packs,
Right.
right? So you'd think they would have more charisma than the abominable.
Yeah, much better at getting along with each other, maybe. But then also charisma comes down to not just to, sort of working and living together. It's also, intimidation and deception, that sort of thing too, right?
And I think that might be where it comes from, is
Yeah.
the intimidation factor. But
You'd think it would be a little bit higher, though, even if it's going to be 3 times the size and it's going from large to huge, CR 3 to 9, like, give it a little more.
Yeah.
More intimidation, maybe.
where you think it would have a skill focus on intimidation, but it's only stealth and perception, which is really interesting. I think they only tend to give creatures 2 skill focuses, but I thought it for sure would have one in intimidation.
Sure. And I'm guessing those skill focuses come down to its hunting.
Yeah, so they actually come down to some of its other abilities, which we'll get into in a minute. The other thing I wanted to point out that I thought was really weird about this creature is that its language is actually Yeti.
I did notice that when I read it the other day.
That blows my fucking mind that these things have their own goddamn language and it's just Yeti. Like, they don't speak undercommon or monstrosity.
Anything else in the game that you know of just speak their own language like that?
I don't
Off the
know.
top of your head? Yeah,
No,
me
I
neither.
can't. And
I'm
if
sure there's
something-
something, but
Yeah, maybe even like, it's got to be like a giant dialect or some shit like that.
Right.
Like, there's no... Like, fuck you, Wizards of the Coast. What are you doing to me? You can't take Yeti as a language.
the next time I'm making a character, they're coming from a snow-clad area of the world, and they're going to speak Yeti for no good reason.
One Goliath that just barely speaks Yeti. So, like, I just cannot get over the fact that their language is Yeti. It hurts me. But I love it.
Yeah, and I don't think Yeti's listed in the languages listed, when you're making your character, and it's like, go to this page to see the list of languages you can learn. That's probably not on that list.
If it's on the list, again, fuck you, Wizards.
Yeah, and if it isn't, can characters learn it? Is it possible for a PC to learn Yeti?
I think
That's
maybe
what I
with
wanna know now.
tongues or like comprehend language would be the only way it works.
Yeah.
But nowhere, anywhere, in any of the lore that I've read, D&D or real world, suggests that these things communicate. Why would they need a fucking language?
Who knows?
Oh, God. This is the first of many things that completely irks me about this creature. And I love, when I say irks, I mean I love how ridiculous this is.
Yeah.
And it kind of just goes downhill from here.
Sweet.
There's some stuff that really makes sense, but...
Down the proverbial mountain hill,
Yeah.
a big snowball.
So the next one that doesn't really make sense in the cultural lore is their ability called Fear of Fire. If they get burned or hit with fire damage, they have disadvantage for everything on their entire next turn.
Wow.
So that's a big downside.
Yeah, you're like really rattling them.
And it's probably because they're a snowy creature covered in hair that you just set them on fire and they have to spend the next turn kind of patting themselves out instead of swiping at you. But why don't gazelles have fear of fire? Like, they have about the same intelligence and they're hairy as fuck. Like, set that shit on fire.
Well, we'll compare that to what are we looking at for like resistances? Like, are they resistant or immune to things like cold? Are they that adapted to their cold environment?
They are. They're actually just straight up immune to cold damage.
Okay. So maybe it's to sort of off balance that in the sense that, like, when you're looking at the lore, they are so unfamiliar with fire and it's so opposite of what they know that it literally strikes fear in them.
Yeah, it's got to be. But
I mean, that's I'm stretching it. I'm apologizing here.
No, and that's fine. Like, this is the one that there are three things on this list that I think are really ridiculous. This is the least ridiculous thing on the list.
Okay.
Like, the second is the fact that they speak Yeti, and I really can't wait to get to the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever read in a D&D book whatsoever.
Which is?
Oh, we'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next is keen smell. So they're known to have a great sense of smell in D&D, and that's how they hunt, and that's why they're opportunistic predators. If you actually read the lore, it talks about them hunting down their prey based on their sense of smell, hunting for blood and dead carcasses and stuff like that. So they really go after it. So that means they have advantage on perception checks that require smell, which pretty straightforward.
Sure.
Doesn't really happen too often, especially in a colder climate like that with low oxygen. The smells aren't really going to translate if we're talking.
Well, that's what I was just thinking too. I do recall reading in the book as well that like they can specifically smell and use their senses through blizzards. Like, even with the downfall of all of this heavy snow, and we're looking at really low oxygen environment. Like, air is really thin. Like, that to me just says how powerful their sense of smell is.
Yeah. So when we get into the homebrew, I'll talk about that a little bit. How I think that they should even have negatives based around how intense their sense of smell is. So if you hit them with something that smells bad, like, maybe that's why they have disadvantage against fire. You hit them with a fireball, their hair goes up, and all they can smell is their own burning hair, and it just fucks them up for a round.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not?
Maybe there you go, Wizards. There's your workaround. You can have that one. Put it in your pocket.
We'll talk salaries for this later, yeah?
Yeah, like $4 an idea. Just let me use your sponsorship. Just sponsor the podcast.
We'll apologize for all of your ridiculous claims.
Try and make them valid on top of that,
Always.
even. Except for the number one on this list. I got nothing for you here.
No.
This is I'm excited to see what you come up with. But
Okay.
So their next ability is snow camouflage.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. They're shimmering white fur. I tried to touch on that in the introduction.
Yeah.
So it means they have advantage on stealth checks in the snow.
Yeah.
So the next is they have multi-attack, which I thought was really fucking cool. And their multi-attack for CR3 creatures is pretty intense. So it's 2 claws and chill gaze. And chill gaze is their other action ability. So for the regular Yeti, it's 1d6 slashing, 1d6 cold damage, which I thought was pretty neat. So they've almost got an elemental feel to them. For the Abominable, they just double it. So the Abominable, you double everything when we stack it up. So it's 2d6. So the Abominable Yeti does 2d6 slashing plus 2d6 cold. And you add your modifiers to the slashing damage, but I'm not going to get into that.
Sure.
So here's number 1 on that list. Chill Gaze. The ability is called Chill Gaze, listeners.
Chill gaze.
So it's got a range of 30 feet. Con save. Paralyzed for 1 minute, which you can repeat the save at the end of turn. And you're immune for an hour on a success, which I thought was really interesting, that it's only immune for an hour.
Yeah.
Now here's the part where wizards can go fuck themselves. It does 3d6 or 66 of cold damage. This Yeti looks at you so hard, it hurts you with its cold. Explain that to me. Explain that to me. The paralyzed I get, like it's a stare down.
Yeah.
Like, you're just afraid. Explain to me the cold damage for me.
It doesn't specifically say anything about, like, cold beams coming out of its eyes or anything, like a physical like touch.
I think it does.
Touch spell.
I think that's written between the lines.
Okay.
It looks at you so hard you take cold damage. What in the actual fuck?
Yeah, forget that animal hide gear you brought up on the mountain. Just a mere look is just going to negate all of that insulation.
It's like Cyclops, but just ice damage. Like the. Somebody write in and explain to me.
We're looking at save for half damage. This is not so, because if it was in fact beams coming out of its eyes, you would you would have to roll an attack roll, or he would have to roll an attack roll.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a spell effect.
Yeah. So it can't be laser beams into the eyes at the end of the day.
So somebody explain it to me. Like, are you just so afraid that you stand there in the snow and you're buffeted by the snow so hard you take 3d6 for a regular Yeti and 66 for an abominable Yeti?
Now, the only thing I can try to justify this with, and it's not even really going to explain it.
Oh God, I'm waiting.
There's this tiny little background thing that kind of makes it anything an exception to the rule. Is that as you were coming up on this, I had a feeling I was looking at your notes and I saw chill gaze, and I went, I have to figure out what the exact definition of a monstrosity is, because that's this creature's subtype. And so I quickly researched it, and monstrosities are not natural creatures, and some are the result of magical experimentation or curses. So
you think a hag cursed this Yeti so hard he can look at you and deal cold damage?
I mean, it's the
like,
only
is he freezing you from the inside?
The only thing I can think of. This creature may not possess innate spellcasting of any kind, or even the intelligence or wisdom to like approach that sort of thing, but is a good chance that it was created by some sort of magical, again, experimentation, or as a result of some sort of ancient curse, perhaps, which gives it an other world. We're not looking at what are mind flayers called?
Aberrations.
Aberrations. Sorry for the snapping. We're not looking at aberrations where they literally come from another world. Like, we're looking at an unnatural thing that has been, created in this world.
Yeah, it's not a
magic.
beast. Like, there's definitely some elemental feel to this, and it's definitely got some elemental infusions in its abilities and its resistances and all that stuff. But
that really doesn't make chill gaze.
I'm gonna need ridiculous. You to write in Wizards of the Coast and explain to me what the fuck you were thinking, or with like one of our single units of listeners, like probably 3 of you. Hi, Dad.
You know what, Wizards of the Coast, we'll give you $4 to apologize for this one.
Yeah, we'll call it even for the next 3 episodes.
Oh my God!
Just tweet at us, like, tell us what's going on. Just whatever you do not hand us a cease and desist letter. That's our only request.
Yeah, all credit.
And you explain chill gaze.
All credit goes to you, even the flubs.
Yeah,
even the worst parts. I feel like I had noticed something in the difference between the chill gazes between the abominable Yeti and the regular. Oh, no, I know what it is.
Mostly it's the damage. Mm-hmm. So the abominable snowman does 66, and you're immune to all of the Yeti's chill gaze on a success. Whereas the regular Yeti, you're only immune to the regular Yeti's gaze for an hour. You're not immune to the abominable, which I thought was really cool. So you can have an abominable sneak up, murder and eat all the other Yetis, and then still chill gaze the party.
Still fuck your day up. That sounds terrifying. Luckily, the abominable Yetis are more or less separate. So you're not likely to encounter one of them as well as a pack of regular Yetis, unless you're homebrewing.
Yeah, and this is not an area of effect either. So this is a single target. So every round, you can use chill gaze and hit it with 2 claws. So for a CR3 creature, you can be doing up to 4d6 worth of damage, plus another 3d6 worth of damage for the chill gaze effect.
That's your minimum.
No, that would be the maximum.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because if they save it, be 1.5d6 on the chill gaze.
Gotcha.
So if you hit both of your attacks, you're doing 2d6 slashing, 2d6 cold, and then if you fail on the save throw for your chill gaze, you're doing another 3d6 cold. So that's a total of 5d6 cold and 2d6 slashing, plus the modifiers on a single round for a CR3 creature. Like, this can hurt somebody.
Yeah, real quick. What are we looking at for, like, speed? How quickly can it come up on you?
The speed isn't too bad, actually. It's 40 feet regular for both the abominable and the regular Yeti, but it's got a 40-foot climb speed.
Okay.
So if you're trying to get up a cliff face to get away from these things, you're shit out of luck.
It sounds to me like the environment is a huge part of the mechanics of this creature. It can sneak up on you in the snow. It can sense you with its sense of smell, like from really far away, or like, has an advantage on that at the very least. Could be has a climb speed. So if you find yourself in that terrible situation of climbing and scaling a mountain on a very sheer ridge, this thing can really come at you hard.
Yeah, and that actually leads me into the homebrew stuff. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on with the homebrew attaches the real life lore as well as that specific niche quality of the Yeti. In the real world, there was a postulation that it was an ape creature. But we realized that even the highest north living apes, even simians, apes, whatever subtype real apes fall under, they come down to the valley in the winter. So there's nothing that can live that high year round. So I like the idea of a Yeti. The idea of pulling a Yeti below that snow line on a mountain actually just boils its blood from the inside, like really deteriorates from the creature. So it's not possible for it to leave that kind of a niche.
You're talking like troll level of getting sunlight and, some of the classic lore of that, where as soon as the sun hits, the UV rays like boil or like solidify its blood.
Exactly.
Calcify it.
I don't think it would be to that extent, but like they would start pouring sweat and they would start dehydrating at a rate that's just unfathomable. So they can't live outside of that snowy wilderness that they're really known for.
Did you just imagine their internal temperature runs so high already that they just can't handle?
Yeah, it would boil their insides, I think.
Yeah.
So I like the. So the way I would use that is I would actually use it very similar to the real world lore. So in my world, Yetis are actually a mythical creature. They don't exist. There's no proof of them existing because they just get boiled and melted if they ever come down.
Right.
But there are folklores and there are stories of people going up to the mountains and attacking a Yeti, and they bring back scalps or fur or whatever. And I really want to pull from that true Himalaya Sherpan Yor.
Sherpan Yor? So good. Sherpan Yor.
Good Sherpa lore.
Good Sherpa lore.
Yeah. So these haven't really been seen outside of their climate or the mountain range the mountain range that they exist in my world.
And the brief amount of lore we have in this monster manual does slightly touch on that. The whole crying of warnings of ill omen from their whales and that sort of thing. So you're definitely going to have some frontier town or village on the foot of a mountain that's going to be wrapped up in these superstitions just based on that alone. And you can like you said, you can really play up the real world parts of it.
And you can play up the howl specifically that you touched on there is said to a precursor an avalanche or a blizzard. So I love the idea of just hearing a Yeti's howl in the background and then a blizzard rolls into town.
Yeah.
I think that's
not
super
unlike
neat.
your harpy heralds for the storm giant.
Yeah, I think everything should have a place in the world to that effect. And I think... I don't think it's actually the Yeti's howl that brings in the blizzard. I just think it's the wind whipping through the mountains.
Sure.
But that's the legend behind the Yeti. And you can pull that directly from the textbook.
Yeah, it could very well be. If you wanted to get down to that nitty-gritty, it could very well be that the Yeti can anticipate a blizzard coming themselves, so they do respond. Like maybe they're sending out warnings to fellow Yetis.
Yeah, maybe that's what that howl is.
To hunt.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, we've already established that they have a communicable language.
Yeah. Is it all in howls?
All in howls.
That's it. I have to make a character. I'm just gonna howl everywhere I go.
Just learn how to do Peter Mayhew's Chewbacca. That's the Yeti language right there.
Sweet Lord. All right. Do we have any other mechanics?
No, we're all done. Oh no, that's not true. The abominable Yeti has cold breath. Oh. This one makes sense. So it's a breath weapon. It recharges on a 6 on a d6, and it's a 30-foot cone. Another con save for half, and then it's 10d8 cold damage. So for
10d8
for a CR9 creature, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I suppose.
Especially on a recharge 6. Like the abominable Yeti, I think is scaled really well, and I think it would work really well against a CR7 or 8 party. I don't think it's a CR9 creature, but the CR3 Yeti, I think will really just fuck everybody's up because I looked specifically to see that they had multi-attack. It's 2 claws and chill gaze because I read it on the abominable Yeti first, and the regular Yeti's got the exact same attack structure.
Yeah, fair enough. I personally, when it comes to encountering a Yeti or using a Yeti, I have no experience in that. And in fact, I have a very specific aversion to the cold, as you know. I really, really dislike snow. So most of the time when I'm thinking about playing the game, one of the things lowest on my priority list is like mountain range shit or anything to do with snow. I don't even want to think about it half the time. So it just never really occurred to me to use a Yeti in any kind of scenario.
I've been lucky enough that I've written a couple of one-shots that happen in the cold. I like the idea of the isolation of the mountaintops. As you know, I'm an avid hiker, and I've scaled a couple of mountains myself. Scaled is not the right word there. I've hiked a couple of mountains.
What's your climbing speed, James?
Like 4 feet per minute, something like that. Like it's not great.
It's not great, yeah.
But I love being out there and being on mountains, and I like the isolation that entails. So I tend to start one-shots that way. I've written 2 one-shots that take place in an icy mountain range. The intro that we actually are going to use for this, where I set you that scene, is the intro to one of the one-shots that I've written that I've never gotten to run. It's not super interesting. It's just a fetch quest for a MacGuffin in a dwarven tomb.
Sure.
Your usual 2 or 3 hour one shot. There's nothing important behind it. I think the crown of the Dwarven King was magical or some shit like that. It's
Cool. Yeah. As it would be.
Yeah, your regular MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need to know what it is. Talking.
Even wrote MacGuffin here. Love it.
Yeah, I don't know what else to call it. I mean, it's the proper term, I think.
It's the MacGuffin.
Yeah. Listeners, if you don't know what a MacGuffin is, get a friend who's in the film industry, and they'll explain it to you. We've talked a little bit how I would plug them into my homebrew world. Do you have any ideas, anything interesting you've come up with while reading through the Yeti paragraph? Any cool ways you would use them?
Not in particular. Once I had read through, I thought, mechanically, I do really like them. They would be quite the challenge, especially that abominable Yeti. Like the previous episode, our pilot about the Harpies, we touched on sirens, which were specifically not a part of the 5e lore or any of the official books as of right now. But it made me think, when reading about the Yeti, that there's room for homebrewing these sort of other versions, like a more temperate climate version, like a Sasquatch, for example. Like, you could easily make a different type of Yeti does exist in the forest or at the bottom of the mountain that isn't, afraid of fire, but maybe, doesn't like the cold so much, something like that. You could definitely change that up for the environment.
So I'm going to ask you the hard question then.
Yeah.
How would you change chill gaze for a Sasquatch? Would it be rock damage, or
it would be something? It would probably be poison damage because it's been rooting through the trash. So if you catch a disease or something, it just stares a disease into your blood.
Okay, just in case you were curious, dear listeners, we're from Eastern Canada, but we both currently live in Western Canada, so Sasquatch is a big part of the lore out here. And
they're basically oversized raccoons.
Yeah, Sasquatch are basically oversized raccoons.
That'll be my newest homebrew monster, the oversized raccoon squatch.
Yeah. Is he the ruling king of your friend's trash demiplane, you think?
Yes, absolutely.
You want to explain that for the listeners? Because I thought that was amazing.
So my good best friend, super cool Dan, who I referenced in the last episode, he has a story from the warlock in their party for their 5e campaign, who has petitioned the DM to allow a spell called Raccoon Swarm, where spectral raccoons show up, bite and claw the enemy's feet and knees, then steal their shit and bring it back to the plane of trash and stolen things, which the warlock, of course, has just invented. The raccoon plane of stolen things is an endless maze of trash and valuables, home to the god of raccoons, patron of mischief and rogues, known to some as Yoink.
I think Yoink might just be a Sasquatch. I think that's what we've established here. That explains the poison damage via sight, I guess.
Yeah.
Just cries so hard that acid leaks out of his eyes.
I love how creative and inventive and silly you can just homebrew stuff.
Yeah.
As long as it fits in the world, right? And
even if it doesn't, he invented a demiplane. Like, fuck
Sure.
it, that doesn't need to fit in my world.
Yeah.
It's said too often, listeners, but sometimes the rule of cool is the way to go, especially with demiplanes. Just make your own fucking demiplanes. They're amazing. Little pocket dimensions. Like, it doesn't have to be a big one. It can be the size of a tennis ball. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
if the Elder Scrolls and Bethesda could put Sheogorath and the Shivering Isles into Oblivion, then you can do whatever you want with demiplanes. It's so ridiculous.
Nerd. That's the one Bethesda reference I think I don't get. You got anything else?
That's it for me, I think.
No? Okay. Well, thanks again for listening to this episode of Encounter This. If you've got any sweet Yeti or abominable Yeti stories, or you know anything more about them in culture, or you can correct any of my pronunciations, or you are from Wizards of the Coast and you want to give us an official apology or sponsorship, we'll take either. Get at us. Our handle on Twitter is @EncounterThisPod. We will eventually have a website up and running, but try not to go there. But if you really need to get a hold of us for the time being...
Sweet wording.
Great pause there.
You're a wordsmith.
All right. That's it for us today. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Like, share, subscribe, whatever the YouTube people say. Tell your friends about us. Tell your friends how great Yetis are and how ridiculous Chill Gaze is, and maybe come up with your own version of the Yeti language. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.